Hello and welcome back to the third rail. We'll start the video on the bench today where we have one of my favorite locomotives, a Class 41 of the Deutsche Bundesbahn. Avid followers of the channel might remember seeing it briefly in a running session a few years back. I don't think it's seen any action since. So I thought I'd dedicate more time to this model today. We'll get it ready for the track, cover a bit of trivia, and try and find suitable stock in the collection to run it with. If you like the sound of that and enjoy seeing trains on the move, you've landed in the right place today. Before we set off, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe and alert button before leaving today. Super thanks are also available if you feel the content deserves it. Whatever the option you choose will be much appreciated. Many thanks. Now on to our topic. So what have we got here? This is a Märklin model number 3082. It was in the catalogue between 1978 and 1992. 3 versions were released during that time, all in the same configuration with very minor tweaks to some of the wheels and valve gear. The tooling was reused later on in a few Delta or digital starter sets. I think the last one came out in 2001. So let's take this one out of its box and look at this beauty. I love the proportions of the BR41 and the large wind deflectors Märklin used on this model. I find the whole package very elegant. The BR41 was a standard locomotive of Deutsche Reichsbahn. It's a Mikado, not quite common for the time, so it's a 282 or a 1D1 wheel arrangement. It was designed as a fast freight locomotive. I think its maximum speed was 90 km per hour, and this made it also suitable for passenger services. All locomotives were built between 1937 and 1941, and they remained in service until 1977 in West Germany, so right to the end of steam, and 1988 in East Germany. This longevity in service should be a testament to the quality and versatility of the design. The Deutsche Bundesbahn used them for both freight and passenger services. The 41334 our model represents was based in Cologne and was the very last unit of this type to be withdrawn from that depot in 1970. I cannot remember when I last serviced this model, so I'm going to check it quickly. Let me grab some tools. We'll check the wheels first, and they are free. We need to get inside. So the body is held down by a single screw. I loosen it, and the body then comes straight off. I'll check the motor. I just want to make sure there isn't a buildup of graphite deposits or grease. And that is all fine, as we can see from the state of the cotton bud. I must have serviced it the last time I took it out, and it didn't run long enough then for anything to accumulate. Okay, well, I can simply put everything back together now. So I'm going to fit a smoke unit too. The model had one when I got it, but I transferred it to another model since. So this model takes a Märklin 7226 or a Zoite 10, which is what I'm using here. Okay, let me check it. I'll give it a quick reverse pulse. Yes, it's working. Okay, I'll send the locomotive out for a warm-up. Now, the reason I rarely use this locomotive is twofold. It is a bit of an odd one to pair with rolling stock, and it is difficult to include it in a themed running session because in the 1980s, Märklin didn't sell many locomotives I could run at the same time. The operational state of the model complicates matters even further. The model is fitted with large wind deflectors of type Wagner. This would be how all BR41s left the factory in the 30s and 40s. In the 1950s, the Bundesbahn fitted smaller Witter-type deflectors to the entire fleet. The exercise was completed by 1959, at least judging by the pictures I could find. The Bundesbahn logo applied to the model was only rolled out from 1955 onwards. So our model represents an operational state that could only have existed between 1955 and 1959. I'll add an additional bit of trivia, which is not really relevant for our purpose today though. Many, but not all, BR41s were fitted with new welded boilers in the 1950s, and a batch was even converted to oil burning in the 1960s, so the locomotives would have been seen with another tender as well. Our model features the original configuration with the original boiler type and tender, which is what the real 41334 kept until its withdrawal in 1970. Now that we are armed with all this knowledge, let's see what we can find in the collection to run with this model. Okay, we'll start with passenger services. In 1978, when the initial version was released, there wasn't much in the catalogue for that period, and the situation only marginally improved in the 1980s. The locomotive is pulling a mixture of classic Prussian coaches, reference number 4004 and 4005, as well as some older Donnerbüchsen, it's reference 4002, and these ones are from the spares box. All these coaches were first released in 1951. The Donnerbüchsen were no longer listed in 1978, but were still relatively recent, as Märklin had stopped production only a few years earlier in 1971. Now that might look a bit messy, but the 1950s were all about clearing the rubble and cobble bits and pieces together to get things moving again. So you could have seen plenty of trains like that on your travels in Germany at the time. But I think these old cars definitely have a certain charm. The 4004 and 4005 would have been the only option available in the catalogue for a Prussian-type consist all the way until new releases in 1986. And you would have had to wait a bit longer until 1989 for new Donnerbüchsen in Deutsche Bundesbahn livery. And here's a similar composition with these later models. So we have at the back of the train 4200, 4201 and 4202, which are Prussian coaches, and towards the front we have 4100, 4101 and 4102, which are Donnerbüchsen. Now all these coaches have DB livery or DB markings. I must say that does look much better, doesn't it? Now, in the mid-50s, the Bundesbahn did a large conversion program of Prussian coaches, with over 1,000 units entering service as soon as 1954, which is what we need. These are known as the ubiquitous Umbau wagon. I have taken a choice out. We have 4067s with luggage compartment, which were launched the same year as the locomotive, so in 1978. These are at either end of the train, And in the middle we have 4079s and 4080s, which were first released in 1968. All these coaches remained in the catalogue until the early 1990s. Look at that. I always say you cannot have enough Umbau wagon in a collection. Now these coaches were used in pairs because of their electrical systems, so I hope I got the combinations right. I think it's quite simple. You have to keep an even number of coaches, because you can only use pairs, and not pair coaches with luggage compartment together. Apart from that, I think anything goes. But I'm sure the expert or eagle-eyed among you will let me know if I failed with my composition here. And that was it for coaches with the Märklin catalogues of the 1980s. Now let's have a look at freight. Here we have more choice thanks to the longevity of many Märklin freight models. Looking at a 1981 catalogue, we can find items that have been in production with virtually no modifications since the late or even the very early 1950s. These would be models of the 4600 series. These models lasted such a long time partly because the 4600 series was originally meant to be a premium range. They were made to higher specs with more detail than the cheaper option, the 4500 series, which was later replaced by the 4400 series in the early 1970s. Now, if we turn to page 73, we can see the 4626, the 4624, or the 4683, and they all still looked as they did when they first launched, for example. You can still pick up many 4600 series wagons for virtually no money these days, and you'll get to a nice result in my opinion. I have thrown a combination together to show a few of them. It might not be very realistic in terms of composition, but this is just to give us a feel. As it happens, a lot of the wagons are registered in Cologne too, like the locomotive. How fitting! Now I have also added earlier wagons from the spares box at the end of the consist. I think it's the last 4 wagons. I'm sure most of you will recognize them. It's a nice long train. As with all 4600 series models, the chassis are made of metal, so the consist is probably heavier than what we have seen so far. And the locomotive is quite happy with the extra load. There might have been another option in the same catalogue, in the shape of the Mannesmann pipe train wagons from set 2854, released the same year, so 1981, and available until 1985. I think this would have worked as well because the swivel wagons were all ex-Deutsche Reichsbahn. I do love this set. So let's try the wagons with the locomotive. Very nice. I repeat, I really love this set. And the feeling it gives me doesn't get old. I could spend hours watching this train go around now. So, my collection stops in 1989, but Märklin didn't stop producing stuff after that. They actually produced quite a few things that would fit this locomotive since then. I am sure something corresponding to the late 1950s period could be found among the 170 or so Era 3 freight models released in the last 35 years by Märklin. And on top of that, there were also coaches and sets, of course. I have such an example here I kept from my digital days. It is Märklin model number 46026. It's a coal train of the early Deutsche Bundesbahn, released in 2013 as a Märklin Insider Special Series. The wagons are all ex-Deutsche Reichsbahn, if I'm not mistaken, with markings that could still be seen in the early 1950s. So we have a mix of Deutsche Bundesbahn and Deutsche Reichsbahn markings. And doesn't it look nice with the Class 41? Oh, I really love this set. Let's watch it for a bit. Well, for a change, this loco received a good workout, I'd say. But I think we should have a bit more fun before the model disappears in the drawer for a few years. Let's switch child mode on for a few rounds. Let's face it, this is what this model would have probably spent a lot of time doing in the toy days. Okay, that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully enough for you to give it a like, maybe subscribe if you haven't already done so, or even send a super thanks my way if you feel the video was worth it. Thanks as ever for your support, and bye for now.